Well, good morning. I'm Eli Machen, your host at Show Up 365. I'm right here in Middle Tennessee, right smack dab in the middle of a men's sexual addiction workshop. Never ceases to amaze me the miracles that take place in an intense setting like this, where men get together and get absolutely naked with one another about their stories and tell things to each other they've never said to anybody else. It's miraculous. Now, I know that when they get ready to leave, one of the things they're going to really struggle with is the messy middle of recovery. You know, this first part is frightening, it's scary, there's a lot of amazing things that take place early on that's intense. And yet, when all the dust settles and they find themselves out there in what we call the messy middle, they want to get on to the end. They want to get into trustworthiness. They want to get to, okay, now I'm there at sobriety, am I done? I think that's probably by nature something we all do. It's been around for thousands of years. I mean, we can see it in history. It reminds me of the Israelites in slavery in Egypt, and begging and pleading to be relieved from their bondage and their pain and their suffering. God steps in and does. He intervenes. He creates crisis, a bit of chaos, and turns their entire world upside down. I don't know what they were thinking was going to happen. Most addicts don't think about what happens either. They want relief from their struggle. They would like to be free of the bondage of sexual addiction, and yet they don't really know what that means. So we go through an experience like the Israelites did, and God stuff happens, and you know, it's intense and exciting and frightening and scary all at the same time, and big things happen. And then we find ourselves in the desert. It's like, now this is not what I thought recovery was going to be like. I don't want desert. I want promised land. I would really like to be in promised land. And we don't realize that when we are doing what the desert's all about. I think that it's one thing for us to get out of our addiction, although it's difficult and some struggle like fury to get out, with slips and relapses from time to time. Eventually they do, but we don't like the messy, we don't like the desert. And one of the things that I just encourage us to recognize is that one of the things that we what God used the desert for was not so, getting the children of Israel out of bondage and slavery was a relatively small deal for God. What seemed to be the real tough part is getting the Egypt out of the Israelites. I think that's part of recovery. That's the hard part. It's the long part. It's the tough part of the journey, because it's not filled with a lot of exciting things. I mean, you know, the Israelites got bored with the food. They complained about it. They got bored with the heat or the cold, and you know, and so they complained a lot. They griped a lot, and it's like they didn't want to go through that messy middle. And yet, it took a whole generation for God to finally get to the point where they quit looking back. They quit longing for the things that they were so enslaved to. Consistency, job security, identity, safety, security in the sense that they survived 300 and something years doing that. It's scary out here. I might not survive. I want to go back to what I know. Until it comes to a point where finally we're willing to let go of all those things in Egypt, quit looking back behind us, and move forward. And I just want to encourage you that the messy middle, the desert in our journey of recovery and counseling and everything, it's vital. It's important, because it changes our heart in a direction of where we need to be and what we need to do. It prepares us for that relationship of intimacy. It prepares us to live a life of transparency. It leads us and allows us to become the men and women God has always intended us to be. So therefore, don't run from the messy middle. You have to go through it. And that's my encouragement today. You have a good one. We'll see you next time. Remember, show up, be real, finish well.